You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's so interesting how many podcast choices there are out there. And actually, my guest and I were just chatting a moment in the green room before recording. And it's so interesting that, you put in the hard work over time and the impact that you can have. This is this is like 350th some episode now. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be able to meet some incredible people that are making big impact with the brands that connect to Shopify and can help with, marketing or development or improving efficiencies. Today, we're going to get into the financial side of a business, which I think is super key and important. My guest is Alan Chen, and he's the founder and CEO of a company called freecashflow.io. I'll have links in the show notes for them. Alan is a CPA, so he's a certified public accountant. He's been in business as a CPA for over 20 years. He has significant experience in tax, accounting, and even in M&As for those that are looking for some point making an exit from their Shopify store. But his company, Free Cash Flow, really what they do is they specialize kind of in I call it like a comprehensive kind of accounting and kind of financial services for Shopify businesses or any kind of online store. E-commerce, I believe they get involved with Amazon FBA stores. They help with agencies and content creators and influencers. I think they even do SaaS companies. They're based in LA. At the end of the day, their company really is here to help businesses to maximize profits, which I know we all need right now. I know there's been lots of complaints about acquisition costs right now and driving traffic to get net new customers, just understanding the full growth formula, so to speak, for a business, and tax planning and tax compliance and kind of future-proofing your business, I think is super important. So, hi, Alan. Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
Hey, Steve. Hey, everyone listening out there. It's a pleasure to be invited to the show. Thank you for having me on, and hope we can share some impactful ideas and tips on tax optimization and bookkeeping for you guys.
Lovely. So what's really interesting about your role, and you have so much experience, I'm envious to a certain degree. It's like my son, just like a math whiz and just kind of really completely, like the way people's brains work when you get involved in accounting and accounting management, you really understand the mathematics and the profitability and the growth formula, I'm going to call it. And I think that's a really important tactic to have, because I think different people think differently. Some people are more creative. You clearly have put your flag in the sand that numbers are an important part of a business, clearly. And so I just want to talk about like what inspired you specifically to get involved in this field and then eventually build the free cash flow business?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Steve. So I think I started out just as, a typical person in accounting, right? Just going doing my ropes, getting my way up there, learning about accounting, tax, bookkeeping, optimization, financial management. But at a certain point, I think it was around that COVID period where, everything kind of shut down. And I needed to find another outlet for myself, right? And I think a lot of people also turn to e-commerce and drop shipping for that. So me and my friend at the time were like, yeah, why don't we try this out? I know we're just accountants here, but hey, maybe we're multi-talented and can get into this. So we started doing what everyone else did, just learn from other online businesses, learn from YouTube, right? And try to see how we can get our hands into the world of e-commerce. So we learned a lot. We started our own store in Shopify. We sold various products that we imported from Alibaba and things like that. I don't think we were that great on the marketing side of things. I think our best month for like $10,000. But we realized from the experience that we were able to talk to a lot of e-commerce owners, right? And we kind of started seeing the same patterns of pain points they're going through. Like, some people figured it out. They're really good on the creative side and they found a winning product and they're scaling, but then they're getting into all these tax issues. They're getting state sales tax letters from state governments and they're panicking. They're like, what do I do about all this stuff? And me and my partner, we took a step back and we said, why don't we do what we're actually good at, which is the math-basedness of this and tax optimization, but still, use that to focus on these type businesses that we're now really keen to, right? So we started getting feedback from them and talking to them. It's like, hey, what would you think about if we were to help you, optimize your books and let you learn about your profitability, your numbers, and help your tax plan? And they're like, oh, we would love that. Like that would be a huge weight. So some of our first clients just came from that, right? And then that's really how we decided that, hey, this is the right path. These are actual people, actual business owners that really need our help. First-time entrepreneurs, a lot of these guys. And this is we find really real value in here to really focus on it. And honestly, Steve, the tax law is just huge, right?
Yes.
No one want to redo thousands of pages of fine print. So we're like, you know what? Let's focus on like 100 pages of e-commerce tax laws and really deep dive into it and really understand it and really make sure that these guys are getting the best benchmark and optimization for their tax situation.
It's interesting. I had quite a few brands that I managed over the years when I was with Shopify. And, some of them they would either outsource a bookkeeper or they would have someone in-house that would just wear another hat, just kind of a lean team kind of doing their thing using Xero or QuickBooks. And so I think there was some reasonable amount of journal entries happening and maybe that paired with what Shopify's kind of like reporting had internally for potential profitability and revenue and these sorts of things. But the challenge that I found was that they didn't seem, a lot of the business I managed didn't really have a plan. Like they seemed like they were going through the motions of, they knew the importance of itemizing revenue and expenses and trying to do some basic kind of accounting practices, but they really weren't thinking the long term about, well, like who's planning the growth for the next quarter? Like, and instead of like, using a dartboard and just saying, well, we believe it's here or this is what we want, instead of actually looking at the numbers. So from your perspective, like, is this just a maturity phase that brands go through where they initially start off with QuickBooks or Xero and they do that sort of thing, but do they eventually migrate over to the next step and saying, no, this is actually a real business. It actually needs to have a proper advisor and some recommendations behind to future-proof this business?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I think you hit the nail on the finance coffin here.
Okay, all right.
So to speak, right? And I think, Steve, if they're starting out using QuickBooks or Xero or know to do that, they're already, I would say, ahead of like the game, right? 70% ahead of the game. A lot of clients who come to us on calls, they're like, yeah, we wrote it down on a piece of paper. Really? Like just some piece of paper on your desk? Like, yeah. So how much sales we made and how much inventory costs for. So like, okay, you have these paper for the last 18 months? Like somewhere. Okay, yeah. What about expenses? What about, things that you bought for your business? How's your bank account set up? Are you doing good segregation between personal and business?
Right.
Or you have an LLC going? Like, there's so many questions when we start asking them, and then you can just see the panic on their face, right? And they realize, oh, wow, I'm actually more behind than I thought, And for businesses that are just like hiring, a guy, there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, but just they have to, right? When they're starting the business, like, I just got to go with the cheapest route. Let me just find a freelancer and say, hey, can you just put some numbers together for me? Get me out of pen and pencil at least, right? And to go into the world of digital software, right? And maybe Excel spreadsheet, right? That might be the next step. Right. And that might be a good start too. But yeah, and then the one after that is definitely accounting software. And then I would say, Steve, like if they really are a full-time entrepreneur, their goal is to grow their business 5x, 10x it, right? And get it to a state where this is a family business, or get to a state where there's a magic number in their head where like, this is the number I want to hit, and then I want to sell this off, right? And if that's their goal, that's not the way to do it. They have to find someone that can help them optimize their numbers, understand their metrics, and really help with inventory management, which is a huge key in the world of e-commerce, right? Mm-hmm. If they don't do all these steps, I have seen businesses go very quickly backwards, very quickly down to the bottom of the barrel, right? Because they're like, wait, what do you mean I'm out of money in the next 4 months, right? When we do like a diagnostic report for a certain company, and then we never heard from them again because like we would help you, but then they just started panicking instead, and then they would go and do some internal struggles right after that with their partners. Right. But I was like, yeah, you got to understand, what is your cash burn? How much operating dollars are you actually spending each month for you to operate your business? What would happen if you miss a shipment coming overseas, right, to your business? Like, did you just, are you just sold out for the next month and not making any money? How does that affect your business, right? And there's so many questions like that I feel like a lot of e-commerce owners who are just, who kind of build up their business very fast within a year, right? Some reach 6 to 7 figures, don't have the capacity or the knowledge to answer, right? Because they're not hiring the right people to kind of advise them on those things. And for me, I'm like, hey, if this is a hobby for you, if you're just doing this as a supplementary thing, right, to your full-time job that you have, and then it's cool. that may be the way you can do it because you're just trying to sell maybe 100 to 200 items a month. There's a little bit of supplementary income. This model works. If this is a full-time gig for you, if you're looking to build an e-commerce empire, that's probably not sustainable, right, for the long term.
Yeah. And I think, and even go further down that journey too. And you talk about, well, if there is an exit in play at some point in years, even 3 to 5 years from now, I think you'd be well served by hiring you or someone like you in your organization, because I believe you're going to set everybody up for success. You do have a lot of skills. Maybe we should share that with the audience, that you do have M&A skills and understanding, well, what do acquirers actually want to see in a business? And I think it's a lot more than just journal entries in QuickBooks. So tell me, just so those that are listening, because there's going to be some people in the mid-market right now that are listening. They're like, hey, we're doing well. Or at least we believe we're doing well, but we just don't know if we're fully compliant and we have all the appropriate records that we believe an M&A, or the next acquirer, a private equity firm, or who knows. They're looking for certain things. Maybe you can share with our audience what those things are.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So I think one of the first things that when these companies are at that stage of going through due diligence process, one of the first questions they're going to get asked is, are you in compliance with all the tax authorities, right? Are you registered? Have you been paying your sales tax? Do you have any unknown liabilities on your books, right? We got to square that one out of the way, because that's just going to come back and bite you. That's just going to make the whole intent process much more dragged out. And sometimes they also just lose interest, right? And move on to the next one. After you get through that step is to make sure that, your last 2 years of your P&L, are you showing a picture of growth? Are you showing a picture of profitability? Are you showing potential there, right? Do all the important metrics that you measure kind of in here. And then how are you controlling your inventory, right? Are there stale inventory, obsolete inventory? How much of it are you writing off every month? And do you have a game plan going into it, right? Of your concentration of sales, right? If a certain region or state, you're not doing well in, right? What is the game plan? Are you diversified? Is your payment provider well set up, right? Are you watching out for all your processing fees and things like that? There's a lot of these questions that need to be answered ahead of the due diligence process, so that you're painting a picture that I'm running a well-oiled machine here, and you should be glad I'm putting this business up for sale, right? That's the picture you want that's the persona you want to take into those meetings, so that when you go away with it, they're the one that's saying, oh man, we need to up our offer. There's no way this guy's going to sell us the business for X price anymore. After hearing about all the great things they're doing to run their business, and they're also going to say, wow, this guy has a great finance setup, so that they know their stuff. We're not going to be able to lowball them, provide them with a low offer, and they're just going to take it because they don't know the benchmark or the market out there. Right. And having that expert in that meeting with you really helps with that. Right. And also a CFO, for example, I would definitely recommend you take someone like that who understands e-commerce, who you can take into those meetings. And it's just a great, I would say, presentation front, right? When you present it that way, so that they know that, you guys know your stuff, know your numbers, and not going to just take a mid offer from them.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about how your organization, how you connect to Shopify and the financial records that are, the bank accounts and credit card statements, things like that. Because I think most brands, if they're at that next step versus the paper scribble or Google Sheets, they're making some kind of journal entries in Xero or QuickBooks. So they have at least something there. And I believe there's going to be some kind of middleware or some kind of app that will sync the Shopify store, and at least, and then maybe select bank accounts and a few things like that, just so that, there's a little bit of a source of truth, a little bit somewhere. In Shopify is your source of truth mostly, but you want to sync to some financial system, either Xero or QuickBooks. But in your particular case, can you walk us through how your system works and how you can streamline kind of the onboarding process of an existing Shopify business that believes that, they're not doing it well enough today for the long haul?
Yes, Steve, happy to go through that. Yeah, so I think it does for a lot of our clients start in the QuickBooks world. QuickBooks is great just because it has tons of connectivity, right, to all the e-commerce platforms. A lot of the inventory fulfillment companies that we work with also has great connections through QuickBooks. So that makes things easier, right? Like you were talking about, Steve, it's good to have one, I would say, source of truth somewhere where the data is going to be correct. All the data is going to be in one place.
Right.
Easily manipulatable, easily presentable in different kind of slices and splices as you need it, right? If you need to see per unit profitability, if you need to see to a certain region, to a certain location, how you're doing in those regions, that's super helpful. So we always recommend that, if possible, you start with QuickBooks, connect all your bank accounts, credit cards, anything that's come to do with your payment transactions, do it. And then we kind of just take over from there, right? And what's great about QuickBooks Online is it's in the cloud, right? So you have easy accessibility to all your data versus you some kind of desktop software. You may always have to email, ask someone to say, hey, can you send me this so-and-so, which slows down the process a lot, right? When in a fast moving world these days. And the other second part of your question is the onboarding, right? So we do try to make it as painless as possible. Because a lot of clients, when they're like, yeah, how long is the onboarding part? Is it going to take a lot of my time? Is it going to be like that? It's like, no, we try to be we're as pain-free as possible. We have these forms that we need to fill out because we need to collect this information. Make sure all your financial institutions in sync with QuickBooks, and then we kind of just take over from there, right? We kind of take over from there and able to provide those recommendation reports and things that you would need to basically grow your business, know what's the next great recommendation that you need to take. And that's when we start having also these monthly calls with a lot more 6 to 7 figure businesses,
right,
to give them an understanding that, hey, here's your financial statements. I know this just look like numbers on a paper to you, but that's what we're here for, right? To walk you through what each of these numbers mean, how you're looking month over month, what is your cash burn looking like, and what can you do as the next step to move your business forward? And then we talk about goals, right? What is your goal of your company? Is there a certain number you're trying to reach? Is there other shareholders we should know about that's going to take over this business? Are you planning on hiring employees in the States? Like that was a big thing during COVID, Steve, when the government was giving out all kind of these credits, right? From employee retention credits, right? COVID credits. And I was like, yeah, this is a great time for you to grow your business, especially some of our clients who are more inventor types who create their own product line. I'm like, yeah, R&D is heavily rewarded in the US, right? R&D credit is given out in abundance. So if that's something you're doing, we should do the study and make sure you're getting that tax rate that you deserve for, helping the US economy, optimize.
Yeah, I love this. It kind of makes me think about another area that's quite interesting. This comes up in conversations a lot, is about nexus. And because it's very challenging understanding nexus laws. And the reason why I bring this up is because in my Shopify days, one of the default installs of a Shopify Plus, so mid-market to enterprise brands, was to have Avalara connected. And I think Avalara and Shopify had some kind of a relationship where they were allowing for API connection between each other. And Avalara's tax engine was the one that was showing the state, the county, the city, kind of, and as you are well aware, there's the tax laws and rates are so different. It's not by state. It really goes all the way down to the county and city, and it can get really complicated. I know Shopify kind of generalizes things with their own kind of tax engine, was kind of like the default install. I think mid-market has that opportunity to go in with Avalara and then have its engine work, its magic kind of in the shopping cart. My question to you is that there's businesses that are in America that are shipping, let's say, to Canada. Some are considering the internationalization, which is kind of the nexus part of this business, about who's the merchant of record, and how am I duty and tax compliant, both just maybe shipping to Canada or just overall in the world. So I'd love to hear it from you, because I think you have a little bit of on the ground kind of experience in understanding nexus law and how to be compliant across these different jurisdictions. So I just would love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah. Thanks for that question, Steve. You're absolutely right, Steve. I mean, the world of sales tax is not fun.
No,
it's not even fun for us CPAs, just because it just varies so much, right? And I know we want to talk about international piece, but usually in the US, right, each state just have their own laws and jurisdictions about sales tax, right? And Colorado is going to be different from New York. New York is going to be different from Florida, from California. They have their own thresholds, and you really hit that nail there. They also have down to the details of the city, the zip codes, the districts, the counties, and it just gets really messy, right? Yeah. And then if you're a business owner that have to deal with all that, plus you're also dealing with the international piece of things, right? If you're shipping to Europe or Australia and you have to deal with that, that's a lot of weight on your shoulders, right? That makes you not be able to sleep well rested, at night, right? I think you might have nightmares about sales tax numbers jumping down instead of sheeps, So my advice for a lot of clients who are going down those paths, and it's really dependent on their concentration too, right? How much they're doing US versus international is unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know which way you put it. It's like us as CPAs, our jurisdiction stop at the border, as I'm about to say, right? We can only help you with everything US tax law related, right? From California to Florida, all the way up to Maine, right? Once you hit that international side, what we can do is support you as far as, we have connections in a lot of different countries as far as like their CPA or CPA equivalent, like CA sometimes, where you can ask them those questions about, hey, how does it work in France? How does it work in Germany for that? And we'll be glad so that you don't have to deal with 3 to 5 CPAs or accountants a month to talk to them directly for you, right? If you hire a guy in Germany or Europe to help you with that registration over there, we'll deal with them. We'll talk with them. We'll make sure that you're not, one of the big worry points is double paying, right? Sales tax. And with that, and we're saying, we'll make sure that we don't do that to save you money. And the other thing is make sure you're just register and optimize, able to sell those to those countries well, right? Because one of the biggest fears that a lot of these owners come to us is, what can I do to cut down on the amount of tax I'm paying or the amount of filings we're doing, right? And it really comes to a personal business decision is that you have this amount of compliance, this amount of work in order to sell in this country. How much is the profitability for doing that? Is it worth your time, right? If you move your advertising dollars, for example, all to the States or all to the certain country, all to Canada, for example, does that actually, does the benefit outweigh the cons of doing that move, right? Or is it the reverse where there's so much paperwork, so much compliance, and so much of that you're like, hey, maybe not worth expanding to another market. The numbers don't support it. Right. Why do we put ourselves in this headache to move in here and maybe make another 10 to 12% more, right? And those are the questions that we want to answer for them, evaluate, work with their international accountant if needed, and make sure there's certain tax treaties in place to look out for those also, right? So then we're respecting them and treating them correctly.
It sounds like I need to have a podcast recording in the future. I'm just thinking out loud right now, but because Shopify has a product, this is not necessarily in your wheelhouse, but you kind of know of this product because you're mostly dealing with like domestic American brands and businesses and getting them to be tax compliant and just helping them be a trusted advisor and giving recommendations and future proofing and planning. But Shopify has a product called Markets or Shopify Markets, and there's Markets Pro, and the benefits here is become, and I think it's powered by Global E, which I think is a software solution and a technology that becomes the merchant of record. And it gives the legal responsibility for selling products to customers in different countries to adhere kind of the local laws. And there's all the tax registration and all the remittance and local payment methods and things like that. All that stuff is all supported kind of inside Shopify. So, for a fee, I don't know, it's like, 4 or 5% or whatever it is. So it is definitely a margin loss. So it's exactly what you said. Well, yes, you can go into international markets, and yes, there is technology to be, tax compliance and tax calculation and filing and things like that. That can all happen through an international solution like Markets Pro.
Absolutely.
But it comes with a cost.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah, it does. Right. So you got to say, does that 5% plus the international processing fee, plus the possibly some boots on the ground, is that all worth expanding to that international market there?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I think people dabble a bit and they say, okay, let's try Australia first. Or let's just ship to Germany only and test out markets just to kind of see. And you can kind of check box, here's where we're shipping to, and then start your marketing efforts in those markets and see. So
it's exciting to say and express those ideas loudly and then maybe in a meeting, right, of upper management. But then when you actually crunch the numbers, and I hate to be like the black sheep and be like, hey, Mr. CEO, can you look at this first before maybe executing on that plan?
Exactly. I want to pivot a bit to a customer story. I hope I don't put you on the spot here, but I love hearing like real life stories of people that say, here's what they used to do in their shoebox of receipts. They found you in your organization and then you made a very impactful change in kind of like how they operate their business, being more tax compliant and think about that. So I just would love to hear it from your side of the table saying, what was the journey, maybe the challenges they may have faced, and then how were you kind of instrumental in, improving their growth or they're improving their financial efficiencies?
Yeah, there's tons of stories in that realm, Steve. I'm trying to think what a good one. Yeah, so while really throwing out any names, let's just say that this client, he sells a back solution, right? So something that helps your back pain, right, go away. I think you can imagine what kind of problem I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
So
right.
I think they were international client of ours. I think they were from Australia. And they've been I think humming along for a while, right? They kind of found the winning product, the winning ads, right? They actually went viral on Facebook and Instagram, and they were just kind of humming along. I think they finally came to us around I would say a year and a half mark of their business, right? And I'm like, oh, this is a year and a half mark. How much could they be doing? Steve, they were already doing around $5 million at that point. Oh, wow. So they were on a rocket ship, right? As you can say, especially for a business only around for a year and a half. So I was like, dang, yeah, that's awesome. And what is your concentration like? It's like, around 80, 90% US. Like, that's very high. That's very high. Okay. Yeah. And how many states have you registered in? What is this registration you're talking about? Mm-hmm. Well, you're an e-commerce business. There's this thing called economic nexus. Yeah. Do you know your concentration of sales to these states? Another blame, silent awkward moment on Zoom calls, right? So, and long story short, right? Like, obviously this person did not know a lot at the beginning, right? We worked with them for a good 2.5 years after that. And we really helped reshape their understanding of just, tax treaty things between US and Australia, how to optimize their business structure, right? Like a parent-child relationship to help with that, because they also have an Australia corporation. Right. Really negotiated with a lot of state departments about, hey, here's my client, he did not know, because he is international, about all the registrations needed. And he's very, apologetic, but he's trying to do the right thing, being compliant. So we were able to get rid of at least $50,000 in penalties for them across the board.
Oh, wow.
To basically bring that down, because they were triggering everywhere. I think at the end of the day, they had like 33 states, right, that they had to do filings registration for. So because they just went off, right? They just went off the chart. So yeah, in that 2 years, we also helped really clean up their books, right? And get it to a state, because they had a goal of selling, right? Their whole thing was they're going to sell their business at a certain point, and make sure that they have what we call investor level financials, which is presentable financials for any investors look at, understand their numbers, understand the multiples, and can get them offer. Right. And I can tell you, Steve, they're no longer a client, but it's good because they were able to sell their business for quite a bit of money, right? Because I have heard words. So they're a former client of ours, but I wish them well. I'm sure they're off on some golf course enjoying some time right now. But who they're operating other business, I don't know. But it's been a year ago, but I'm sure they're doing very well with the profit that they made from selling that.
That's lovely. Thanks for sharing that. I want to talk about some narratives in the market, because I accounting to me doesn't seem very sexy at all.
No,
it's very necessary. I mean, that's typically why people are in business, because there has to be an exchange, a financial exchange, and that's kind of how that's why you can have a head count and employ people and be able to share your products. It's just one of those things. So the financial part, I completely get it, but I have a funny suspicion that there's going to be some misconceptions about taxes and tax compliance and deadlines, and so I'm going to throw back to you if you want to address any of these myths in your industry, or anything you want to address, or anything you want to debunk.
Yeah, I don't know what debunking, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of sayings, right, about tax and bookkeeping and things like that, right? I think one of the first ones that we always hear about is that the tax deadline, the April 15, March 15 time is the only time you should think about taxes. Oh. And I just want to mention that is great if you're just a personal tax filer, right? You're just working a W-2 job. That's kind of all you have. Maybe you have a couple investments. Cool. Use TurboTax. You're good. You're good to go, right? But for the business owners out there who are in the 6, 7, 8 figure range, I'm hoping that that's not the only time you think about taxes. And I'm hoping that you're not just hiring some tax preparer to do it, and also not some tax preparer who doesn't understand your industry, doesn't understand how to get that tax saving for you, because there's tons left out there all the time, every year. Like IRS makes billions of dollars more, right, every year on taxes that clients don't take advantage of, right, or taxpayers don't take advantage of. And they're not going to give it back to you. They're like, cool, thanks. We needed this money. Pay off our debt, right? So for us, it's our job to kind of tell them, hey, I know it seems a little bit annoying, if you will, right? That we're always giving you these monthly calls and slacking you like advice and things like that. But we're doing it so that when we get to that tax filing period, your numbers optimized. Your setup in QuickBooks is e-commerce. You have e-commerce chart of accounts, what we call it, right? So it's very easy to tell where your deductions are coming from. Where else can we get deductions from? And there's things that we already took care of because, for example, the home office deduction is a huge part of a huge tax deduction for business owners, right? Because if they work from home, they don't have an office, which a lot of people who came from the COVID era don't, right? They just work directly from home. Yep. They need to be able to set up their home in a way where they carve out an exclusive spot, right?
Yes.
Just for their business. And
square footage.
Yeah, exactly. They have a garage dedicated to all their inventory, for example. That's another exclusive spot, especially when they don't park there, right? And you should take advantage of that because that's a deduction you can take as a percentage of your total square footage, which you guys can see you totally get, Steve. And you can get a lot of money back that way, right? Due to the amount of mortgage or rent payment you're making, utilities, water, gas, electric, you name it, and repair and maintenance at the end of the day.
Even car. I mean, my wife, I think you're able to write off, like, I think even for home-based businesses, like 6 days a month, you can write off your car. And if you're leasing a car and there's like, it's so interesting.
If you're using your business vehicle primarily for business, that's another great deduction that they should take advantage of. Right. Or if they just want to say, hey, we want to invest in equipment, a business piece of equipment. It could be a vehicle, could be, any other equipment that they want to buy. That is a big investment and a big something that we can accelerate for them, is what we call it, right? Accelerate the deduction for them so that they can take it to go against a very profitable year that they've shown. So all that to say is, that tax deadline thing is not for you business owners out there. It's for the personal individuals out there, right? And then the other one I want to mention is just how bookkeeping is boring. I'm not going to deny that, right, Steve? Bookkeeping is not the most exciting thing. No. But it's, like you said, it's necessary. It's needed. It's the way where it's the fundamental, the backbone of your numbers, of your business. It's the way to tell how far you got to go for this business. It's the way to, have that core where your empire kind of grows from, right? Because you understand your numbers. You're not running out of money. Anybody can understand that basic principle, right? You're not running out of money and your numbers support that fact, right? And I think it's boring and I get it. And that's why I think if you just don't have that side of you that want to look at numbers all the time and want to do that, just hire out. Find someone in your field, in your community that really understands your business, really can dig deep into the numbers and help you figure it out and help you give the best recommendations that you can to grow it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So looking ahead, like I know this is kind of a loaded question again, but there's quite a few emerging trends kind of that I'm seeing right now, like just financial trends, and so we have an election coming up soon. There's a lot of stuff going on. So from your perspective, it's just like, how do you believe that maybe e-commerce businesses, how can they be prepared for this future? And I want to add to that saying that, being in Q1 right now, we're rolling into Q3 soon, and people know that BFCM, this Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and into the holiday season, that's where the bulk of the money is being made in e-commerce. Hence why they call it Black Friday, because that's kind of when it becomes profitable versus being in the red most of the year. And so from your perspective, like, what sort of trends are you seeing? And then how can these businesses prepare now for this very looming future?
Yeah, great question, Stephen. And happy Prime Day for all the business owners out there, by the way.
Next 2 days, you got
it. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think there's a vast variety of topics we can kind of, break down here. Some things I want to focus, and this is something I'm sure you heard a lot, is, you should invest in some of the AI-ness out there, right? AI software, automation is available. Take advantage of it. Don't be scared of it. It comes in a lot of shapes and forms, right? Some are operating things, some are things that can help your customer service stack, right? Maybe you can use that instead of hiring someone out, like outsourced contractor, and really take advantage of that, because that's kind of the way the future we're looking at right now, right? All industries, you can see the trending in the market right now is all kind of going toward that direction. Even for us, we're changing up some of our stacks to be like, we should do things more automated. We should do things where all the processes are not as manual as we go into it, right? Yeah. And I'll say the other thing is just really diversify your suppliers, right? I have a lot of scary conversation with clients who are like, oh man, if this supplier don't answer me back in the next 2 days, I'm in deep trouble, right? If this supplier keep raising my prices, it's not sustainable. I have to go out of business. And you never want to be in that situation, right? You should have 2 to 3 to 5 suppliers on queue saying, hey, I need to be at this price. If you can't get me this, I'm going to go with these guys, right? And you got to turn the table on them. It's like, hey, I have gone to this volume. I have probably made you this much money this year. Like if you wanted to let go of my business, sure, let's cut it. Let me turn to these guys, right? And you have to be ready for them to say no also, right? You can't be just a scare tactic and then, you're kind of out of luck there. You have to be prepared to always be negotiating, always be ready for, for that your inventory to not be cut because you're dependent on the supply relationship and there's only being one, right? Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is just the pricing strategies. And you kind of touched upon this, right, Steve? Like there's a lot of competition out there. A lot of people are kind of selling similar products, right? And there's a lot of these sales dates, like right now during Prime Day or during Cyber Monday and Black Friday. Your ability to be flexible, your ability to do A and B testing, right? Yes. To see what market will respond to certain pricing, what is your pricing sensitivity on your product? It's really gonna turn you into a winner, right? And your creative use right now, I would say influencer marketing is a big thing right now. Your creative use of influencer marketing, using TikTok, which is a big platform right now, it's going to be huge, right? And understanding a price that sells well on, TikTok Shop, maybe will not work on Shopify or your own website or Amazon is going to be very important. Your understanding of a CEO and how to manage price out there.
It's interesting, though, you mentioned about these different types of pricing tools because I've had quite a few partners on. Price Sync is one, and Price to Spy is another one where they will automatically make price adjustments based on competitors' pricing or market conditions and inventory levels and market demand. It's so interesting, and there's a lot of A/B testing in there too, where understanding a session tracking, and you come to this is mostly for commodity products, right? Maybe not like wholly branded products, stuff like that. But it's so interesting that there are tools and software out there that can really help you make good competitive decisions and maybe not necessarily just cost plus pricing. I think there's a lot more to it. That it's more than just a cost of goods plus a markup. I think there's much more of a process into that, and that sounds like in your wheelhouse too. And I think that's all part of what you offer. I think overall, when you're looking at a business and its profitability and just saying, hey, we understand that the net new customer cost per acquisition is very high right now, and so we understand that, and so maybe it comes back to getting a better wholesale price, or maybe it means creating bundles so you can raise your price and offer a package so that the basket size is larger, which equals more net profit per transaction. And this is in your wheelhouse. And this is how I believe you help merchants.
Oh yeah, that last paragraph you just said, Steve, I'm sure it helped a ton of business out there, right? No, I'm serious, right? Yeah. Bundling pricing is a great strategy, right? Because bundling prices make the value of the product just seems so much higher to consumers out there, right? Just look, I'm getting 2 or 3 things or a free ebook, right? And all these things you can add on to it. And it doesn't cost you that much, but gives great value to the consumers. And I think that's a great tool they can use, right? And all these pricing tools out there, I'm sure a lot of them are maybe like AI branded now, right? So
they are.
To help them with their pricing strategy. And that's a great way forward too.
This is lovely. So before we kind of wrap up for today, I've learned a lot. I got a lot of notes here. I mean, as boring as it is, I still have 2 pages of notes. So that's, that's important. I'm seeing some of the things that you do. I know you're being very impactful for the people that you are working with. That's why you're on the show today. It's just to educate people that, hey, there are CPAs out there and, free cash flow, your company, you're here putting your flag in the sand and saying, I really want to and continue to help Shopify e-commerce merchants because you were once a merchant yourself. You kind of get the anxiety to go along with that. What do you think some of the next steps are for our listeners that want to kind of tap into your expertise or want to learn specifically, what could an engagement look like with you and what the next steps could be?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So for us, we really do want to provide that community aspect for a lot of the e-commerce owners out there. A lot of people who are aspiring entrepreneurs, right? So we do put out quite a few blogs a month on our website.
Okay.
They're free, obviously. Feel free to check them out. So then they can get educations on different things about tax, bookkeeping, pricing, everything in between, right? And if there's a topic that people like or comment on, we would try to write on those topics too. And we also try to partner with a lot of people just in the e-commerce world. Badger was one of the partners that we do guest posts with, so that we really like them and that they really are in a believer of this kind of education too. And then if you're just a business who are, listening to this and thinking, wow, we could do a little bit more to grow our business or to optimize tax. Well, we're not happy with the amount of tax saving we got last year. Well, anything in between, right? Just feel free to book a call with us. I'm sure Steve can put my link in the podcast description. But we're happy to do this partnership with Fastlane too on the podcast to offer a diagnostic call with them where we can kind of deep dive into their numbers and we'll really take a look at, some of the pain points you guys are facing or some of the gaps you guys have and provide that as complimentary service.
Oh, that's lovely. So I'll have ecommercefastlane.com/free cash flow, all one word. That'll redirect to your landing page, which I see here is available. And there you can take Alan up on that offer. I think it's certainly work. It's a free strategy session. At the end of the day, it's just like you get to see if, where you at today. You get to leverage, the 20 years of experience that Alan brings to the table. And then this way you get to find out, where's my business today? What's your long-term growth plans? What's your burn rate? What's the margin? What's your head count? Like there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of levers to be pulled. And I think that's where you kind of fit in there. You really become a trusted advisor or almost a recommendation engine saying, hey, here's how we believe we can help you because we've seen this with other brands. And so I think it's really exciting that you're offering that service.
Absolutely, Steve. And our whole motto is we want to keep more of your profit back in your back pocket. That's a little saying that we have.
I love that. That's cool. Well, Alan, thank you so much for recording today. I know this, once again, tax is not necessarily supposed to be a sexy topic, but it can be boring for some, but it's necessary. It's part of being a great operator is having some financial literacy. Clearly, if you don't already have it, you can outsource it to you and your organization. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I just think it's a gap missing in a lot of entrepreneurs' kind of toolbox of, some people are really good marketers and good product people, but they're not really good financial people. And I think having you in their back pocket is quite helpful. So once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, appreciate that, Steve. And thank you for the opportunity. I had a great time.
Take care. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.